Okay. So glad to be here. Really, really great to see a lot of familiar faces and to be able to practice in our community. Um, Today's class, I'll just say prop wise, and if you're just joining or if you're coming in by recording, helpful to have 2 blocks and a strap and some kind of comfort, a pillow or a blanket to go under your knee when we have some knee down lunges, because I think that comfort is a good thing always. So good things to have. Today's focus, I'm calling the roots of the heart. The roots of the heart, and you'll get a very clear sense as to why that's the title when we get into the practice itself. But I will share a little bit about the physical emphasis for this class, and then I will also share a little bit about what is the deeper, more heartfelt intention of this class. So physically, the invitation in this class is to release around our psoas, release around the sacrum. We'll get into the hips, and we're going to explore this connection anatomically between the xiphoid process, and I'm just going to name this here at the beginning, the xiphoid process, which resides at the base of the sternum, and it's like way tucked in here. So if you follow your ribs, your rib cage towards each other, the xiphoid process is this little, I'm going to call it arrowhead shaped bone that sits at the base of the sternum. And it's sometimes delicate, like if you place your fingers in there and kind of palpate around towards that area, there's often a kind of tender sensation in there. And I'm going to invite you to imagine this as kind of like that, like the tailbone of your sternum area. So if you think about that, we have this bony plate of the sternum that the ribs connect into, and then we have this delicate little arrowhead shaped bone right there. And then let's bring our attention down to the sacrum. So right down to the sacrum, all the way down to your tailbone. And we have a little matching bone, which we call the tailbone here. And that there is a way sometimes in which when we're curling towards ourselves, when we're curling in, that you might imagine that we're creating a connection between these two arrowheads, between these two small bony structures, and that we're creating a tether between the tailbone and that and the xiphoid process. And you might explore this for a moment, even as I'm explaining it, kind of imagining that these two areas can actually energetically connect. And with that comes your core. With that, we wrap around, we're kind of hugging ribs towards each other, and we're really drawing inward to feel a core sense of self. From there, the invitation becomes, how do we sustain that while we simultaneously remain open in the heart, remain open across the chest, so that as we curl forward and then lift back up, we don't give this away. We sustain that tether as we open to the world. And it's an invitation at a physical level to really anchor a very core sense of you, of who you are, and into a and stay open to others, stay open to the ways in which we're so deeply interconnected. And how do I come into relationship without losing me? Right? And how do I come into self without losing that essential connection to you and the world that we share, right? So as we explore the roots of the heart, we're really anchoring into self and our interconnectedness. When we work with the psoas, as we will some in this class, it's an invitation, and everything's an invitation, to release some guarding, particularly the way that our psoas connects into our fight-flight system and kind of can cause us to curl up or pull our knees in or self-protect. And as we lengthen through that area, it's that invitation to embrace the vulnerability that comes with opening. And because this class and some of what we spoke about before we entered into our recording, because entering into the body is in itself a vulnerable process, but especially even here as we go into this, more specifically, be super gentle, right? Like come in and out. You always get to go back and curl inward, even as we're lengthening and opening, and you'll feel that pulsation as we practice that together. So the invitation is to begin to feel more comfortable opening up and feeling life more fully, combining this with elements of love and compassion, which to me are bringing us back to those roots of the heart. What else do I want to say before we dive in? I think that's it. All right, I have some quotes and some kind of intention setting, and then we're going to go into our practice together. So the first quote is a quote that I first came across when I was writing my master's thesis on the subject of, basically the subject of burnout. And this was in 1998, and I was looking at what was coming up for me at a time when I was first really entering into becoming a psychotherapist. And I was feeling what I'm going to call compassion fatigue. I was really feeling how, as I was opening my heart to the world and to sitting with others and being in relationship to other people's pain, I didn't know how to kind of shut that off or balance it or not feel kind of overly weighed down by my own empathy capacity. Anyone relate to this? And so I really did a deeper dive. I chose to then spend the next year writing a thesis about how to tackle compassion fatigue and burnout so that I could create sustainability. And now, 22, 23 years later, I'm still here. I'm still here in the field. So something worked. And I included in that thesis work why yoga was so important, why having these kind of physical practices to ground us were so important. But I also, one of the books that really influenced me at that time, and I was writing this while I was at a Buddhist-based school called Naropa University, where I was doing my master's. And so one of the books that really influenced me at the time was a book by Joan Halifax called The Fruitful Darkness, and also a Buddhist writer speaking about the roots of compassion. And these words that I'm going to share with you have been with me for over 20 years as something that really helped me understand what happens in that kind of deep empathy. And also as we move through our own bodies today and explore this relationship of staying connected to self as we open, that to me is very much the resolution that has helped me not feel weighed down by the pain that exists in the world and so forth. So here's Joan Halifax's quote from The Fruitful Darkness. "The roots of all living creatures are tied together. They tangle and embrace. If we look deeply, we find that we do not have a separate self-identity, a self that does not include sun and wind, earth and water, creatures and plants, and one another." So we have this ability to find within us where we coexist. Right? She refers to that as non-duality. And I think it's a profound realization when we touch the roots of the heart, where we are so deeply interconnected and tied together. It's why I love community. It's why I crave this. And as we come into the root of the self, which I think is also going to be an anchor for us, I'm going to bring in another quote here from Rumi. Rumi. Okay. Come, return to the root of yourself. You are a ruby embedded in granite. How long will you pretend it's not true? We can see it in your eyes. Come to the root of yourself. So we'll play a little bit with self and this idea that there's no separate self-identity. And we're going to hold a little bit of both together. With all of that said, I'm going to shift onto my mat. I'm going to shift view here so that we can be connected. And my invitation as an intention for, I feel like I'm really dark. Do I seem dark? Gosh, give a little more light. Let's see if that lightens things up. The invitation is to, let's see. All right, well, it might be a little dark, but we'll sort it out. All right, the invitation is to reflect on what roots means for you. What does it mean to connect to your roots or a sense of being rooted? And in what ways do your roots support your growth? In what ways do your roots support your growth? So let's rub our palms together as we dive into practice. Connecting to your breath. And for a moment, just sweeping your palms over your face. We're going to let go of some of the thinking. We're going to drop into the body, maybe from your shoulders down to your elbows or hands, and maybe across your hairline, your neck, belly, lower back, even including your legs. Just a sweeping touch here, inviting your body to come along for the ride alongside some deep thoughts, some seeds planted here. Okay. And then from here, let's bring back our palms together in front of the heart. And a kind of felt sense exploration of that downward rooting arrowhead of the sternum, the xiphoid process, and allowing yourself to just curl forward just enough, curling your tailbone forward to really visualize this tether between these two arrowhead-shaped bones. And then sustaining that connection, now explore how it feels to lift your heart towards your connected hands. And if you feel like you lost that core connection, curl on in again. And then find that lift, pressing heart into palms. My roots support my growth. Beautiful. And the invitation from here is to continue now to find that movement pulsating down inward, that contraction, and then feel that lift as you sustain that root of connection. Maybe your hands come into the motion, letting your breath support this. Exhale, contract. You might even press palms together. Inhale, we open, but we don't give it all away. Good. And then returning to center. And if you'd like a few rotations, upper body around the pelvis and hips, finding your rhythm, inhaling forward, exhaling as we round back. And then going the other direction. And we're massaging across your digestive organs, really supporting those deepest roots that help us navigate this world that we share. Inhaling, lengthen your spine, and exhale, we're going to lean to one side. Just finding your side bodies. They're going to kind of be part of our practice, a central part today. Let's go the other side. And then as we come to center, inhale, sweeping your arms to lift. And exhale, we're going to open to one side. We're going to find a little length and lift of the spine. And then grabbing hold, left hand to right knee, or sorry, I'm turning towards my right. So if you're turning towards your right, left hand to right knee. And then let's lean left shoulder down towards your left knee. And just finding, once again, that side body. Explore how it feels to root towards your right hip and sits bone as you lean away. And inhale, lift. We're going to find that openness through center. And let's go to the other side. Right hand can hook on your left knee, a moment of lengthened spine, and then we're going to lean away, taking right shoulder towards right knee as you lift through left arm. A little bit of a kind of traction to this reach and stretch as you kind of hook hand to knee. And then we'll lift up here. And then invitation from here is to lean into your left hip, and let's lift the right leg for a moment and just start to kind of rock the right leg around your right hip socket. I'm just going to see if I can shift my lighting a little. I still feel very dark. So creating a little bit of a rocking motion here in your right hip, greeting the sensation. You can rock side to side or circular motions. And then a choice here, and this is where that strap that I had you grab might come in handy, because you might just kind of loop that strap around your foot and begin to lengthen it out, and we can kind of create a little bit more length with our arms using the strap. And so you can lengthen your leg forward. You might explore opening towards your right side. You might even cross over midline, even switch hands and go to the left. And some of you might say, I don't need a strap. I'm going to hold on to my foot. All good and well. So finding your variation, just greeting your leg, your hip, the outer IT band, with or without a strap. And it's early, so we're not going into, you don't even have to lengthen the leg completely. We're just kind of entering in. Good. And then releasing your foot to the ground and sliding your foot out nice and long here. And just like we did earlier, just a few sweeping movements. Upper body can fold forward a bit. Hands might sweep down your right leg and back up. And again. And then lifting here and a side body lean as we lean towards the right and back out. So we've now kind of shifted our orientation of our pelvis, and it's early, so nothing is forced really ever at any point in class, but going in gently, reading your side body, your hips. One more like that. And then this time, as we lift up, an invitation to place your left hand down and then lift knee, right foot, hips, arm can come overhead. And then as we release hips back down, I'll invite you to turn forward and lean over that right leg again. And we'll find this as a sweeping movement up and around, hand plants. We lift, open the heart, and exhale. Let's dive in. And now maybe exploring this third time through, what does it feel like to tether that xiphoid process and tailbone? Hang on to that so that as we lift and open the heart, we're not giving the core away. And then back around. Lovely. Lifting up, we're going to lean into left hip, curling the right foot back in deer pose, and then a few breaths here as we twist towards the left. Very gentle. You might keep your right hand on your right hip flexor, or you might begin to reach, feeling perhaps a bit of that opening between hip flexor, psoas, side body. Gazing and returning. And again. And back through to center. And as we lean towards left hip is coming around back to midline. And for just a moment, pausing, noticing left and right sides of your body. Breath. Planting roots to support our growth. Let's lean into right hip as we lift the left leg and begin to just find some rocking or rotating movements. Getting to know what your left hip is holding, what resides here. And then an invitation to send your left leg long and gentle sweeping movements, knowing that it's still early. And then as we sit up, let's rebend that left leg and let's go ahead and explore our strap movements. So let's come back to what I skipped there for a moment. So if you use your strap, maybe lengthening your left leg long, and you can find stillness or a little bit of movement, or maybe a little bit more movement as you might open to the left, switching the strap, crossing over midline, twisting a little bit this direction, right? So side to side. And you can do that with or without your strap, depending on your body. And there's no right or wrong or better or worse. Good. And then let's reorient foot to earth, leg to earth. And this time we'll come forward over your left leg. And then bring in side body. So this time leaning left shoulder towards and away. And you can keep right hand on right hip, or maybe you bring arm overhead. Easing in and out. Good. One more like that. And then up and around. Right hand can plant, lifting onto knee, foot, finding opening. And then as we set the hips back down, we're going to turn and face your left leg, a little fold in, and then up and around, sweep, lift, exhale, drawing it in, really feel that hugging into yourself. Keep that with you as you open. Beautiful. Turning back towards your left leg, lifting up. We're leaning into the right hip this time to bend your left knee. And as we're in deer, just a few gentle movements side to side, opening and settling. Maybe your arm comes for the ride. And then as we come back through to center, leaning, bringing both feet in front of you this time. I will turn to the side here, and then with both knees lifted, feet wide to the edges of your mat, just softening knees to one direction and then the other. And once again, you might allow your arms to come along, lifting up overhead as the knees drop over. And you might even explore this side to side deer with no arms at all, right? And those of you that have been taking with me kind of know this one. And just letting it be your rhythm and a little sense of freedom and play. Lovely. And when you're ready, even on both sides, an invitation to prepare to come onto your back. But before you come there, I'm going to invite, do we need blocks for this one? I need a moment. No, we don't need blocks, but we do want our strap with us. I'll invite you to come down onto your back with your strap. And arriving here, and I'll invite you to place your right foot in the strap. And like we did seated, just another opening through your right hip, back of right leg. You can keep your left knee bent, or you might slide your left knee long on the mat. And then a few breaths, just breathing into the back of your right leg. And you might explore how it feels to open your right leg to the right. And you might explore how it feels to cross over with the strap and bring your leg just past midline, feeling that outer IT band on the right side. Maybe a lot of sensation, and you might go back and forth one more time. And then returning to center, releasing your strap, and let's go into side two. Let's go into side two right away. So let's take this around the left leg. Right knee can stay bent, or maybe you extend right leg long. And a few breaths. Just settling in. And then maybe a little bit of opening your leg one direction and the other. Following sensation and knowing that that doesn't mean it always feels great at first, right? It might be those uncomfortable edges, and we can find the edges, but find the tolerable amount of that. So we're not going so far that we're not breathing, right? Just go, ooh, there's an uncomfortable spot. How do I breathe into that? Good. And then returning to center, Undoing the leg, releasing your strap, and with both knees bent, an invitation to lift your right leg again, and this time to bring your hands behind your right hamstring. And perhaps to curl through your upper body so that we're shortening that distance of sternum to tailbone. And then maybe extending your left leg long and hovering it here. So left heel is off the mat. And just finding your breath, finding what supports this hold. You can stay with hands behind your leg, or you can release your arms long, right? So whatever is going to best support you. And if it's uncomfortable for your neck, you can also use your hands behind your neck or simply lower the upper body. Coming into breath in the static hold. Shortening that distance, sternum to tailbone. And then rebending that left leg, rebending your right leg, resting for just a moment, softening through your neck and jaw. Sigh something out, and we'll lift your left leg and hands behind your hamstring, curling up, really feeling that engagement of your core. Maybe right leg goes out long, hovering above the mat. Feeling the strength of your body here, maybe reaching your fingertips long. Connecting to breath, even in the static hold. And then holding behind your leg as we settle right foot, left foot, upper body down to the mat. Beautiful. This time, two options. Option one is to take your hands underneath your hips, a nice, stable, strong base for the sacrum. And in there, we'll lift the legs, and we're going to do alternate leg lowering and lifting. And another option, and you get to feel this out for you, is hands behind the head, lifting shoulders, lifting legs, and lowering and lifting with the legs. So find what is going to be most supportive for your lower back, for your core. Again, we're really curling it in if the upper body is lifted. Either way, we're getting a really nice anchoring of that low core and awakening here, feeling that empowerment that's going to really tether you to you as we open up to the world. Beautiful. Both legs can lift, and then lowering everything down. So if your hands were underneath the sacrum, you can remove them here, lowering your upper body if that was lifted. You might wiggle it out for a moment, just let something go. And if it feels right, hands are coming behind the head for this one. We're going to lift through your right leg. You're going to turn towards the right, finding a twist, and again, a static hold, maybe sending your left leg out long. You can always keep left foot on the earth. So really listen to your body here. Finding the static hold, connecting to breath. And then rebending left knee if it's lengthened, coming back to center, softening right foot to the earth. And we'll find side two, lifting your left leg, finding a twist and turn towards the left side. Maybe right foot stays on the ground, maybe right foot hovers. Static hold here, connecting to breath. Softening right foot back to center, left foot comes down as well. Ah, okay. Putting all of this together for a moment, lifting your legs. I'll give two options on this one. Option one is straight legs side to side. Okay. So movement, lifting and lowering. Option two, a little easier, bent leg, like our little bicycle here. So one way or another, perhaps finding this integrative upper body, lower body, crossing midline, engaging your core, staying connected to breath. And center, lowering down, last integrative core piece here. We're going to place feet together, knees are wide, and exhale, knees and elbows in, and inhale as we open wide. Exhale, we contract. Feel that tether. Inhale, don't give it away as we open back up. Exhale. Inhale. Two more. Exhale. Inhale. Listen carefully. Exhale, contract it in pause. Feel that contact, perhaps knees to triceps, maybe lengthen your arms up over towards the ceiling for just a moment, a supine bakasana, crow pose. And then soften it down. Let your head rest. You might wrap your arms around your shins and just rock a little side to side. And then hands behind your knees, an invitation to rock back and forth along your spine. And coming up to sitting, we'll find Navasana boat pose. And here we're balancing just behind the sits bones, and you might lift feet off the ground, and you can keep hands behind your knees here for support initially if you'd like. Feel that connection of xiphoid process to tailbone, feeling that tethering in, and then the lift of your heart, like there's a little string still lifting your sternum towards the ceiling. Maybe hands come along the sides of your legs. Beautiful. Let's lower it down. We're going to go right over the shins into a cat-cow. And a few free breaths here to explore how your spine is feeling, how your core is feeling, what you're needing to move, and how you're needing to integrate this. And I'll guide us into a little bit of a little Ferris wheel motion here for a moment. So I'm going to guide you to shift your hips back towards your heels like a child's pose, and then rolling your spine forward and up to come through a cat, really arching here, and then settling your chest down, your hips settle back. So finding that kind of circular motion here, your own rhythm, your breath. Moving up through cat and down through cow. And you might even slide your hands slightly more forward so that as you lift up through cat, you can even settle your heart then towards the earth like a baby cobra, and then press back into child's. Let's do that again, moving all the way up through cat, leaning forward. Keep your core online as we lower a little baby cobra, and then settling your hips back. One more time. Arching forward to the earth. Gentle lift of the heart. Keep the core engaged and set the hips towards your heels. And then through tabletop. Another little exploration here of our theme. Let's find that tether in this shape, drawing your tailbone and your sternum towards each other just enough to feel that tether. And then as if you're going to drag the heels of your hands back towards your knees, let that create a little bit of a reaching of your sternum and heart forward. Can you keep that core engagement with the heart reach? Beautiful. Letting that go. Finding a neutral spine, an invitation to press up through your right leg, heel towards the ceiling, and just a few pulses here. And then drawing right knee under, and explore in this movement as we lift and curl, not fully curling into the low spine. So actually keeping a relatively neutral spine, and what engages around the psoas and pelvis to draw the knee in. And then leg behind you, toes curled under, a few pulses here. And from here, invitation to take your left foot back. Right arm can swing up and around. You might rotate your wrist if you like, and all the way up and over into gate. And in gate, you might keep your right toes faced forward, or you might lift right toes up towards the ceiling. Different feeling in the leg and side body. So just notice what arises for you. You can try both. And then replacing that right foot to the earth as we come up and around, and finding this variation here of a side plank, allowing yourself to really feel the length of your right side body from your outer right foot to your fingertips. And then a little more engagement of the core, leaning into left hand, left knee, lifting right leg, and on an exhale, knee to elbow. On an inhale, we expand and reach. Exhale. And again. Expand, reach, placing right foot down, right hand down, listen carefully. We're going to draw right knee all the way forward and begin to slide your left foot back. Now, we're not doing a typical pigeon here. We're not taking left foot to the side. It's actually right underneath your right sits bone. And here's where those blocks might even come in handy, is explore how it feels to lift through the upper body in this shape. You might have knee down, you might have top of the foot down, you might have those toes curled under, or even with the top of the left foot down, maybe lifting left knee off the earth. A little bit of lift of your heart. And then settling back down, we're going to meet in tabletop. And just a few free movements here to let that go. And finding side two, lifting through your left leg and a few pulses. Sending left heel towards the ceiling. And then stabilizing through a neutral pelvis, drawing left knee under and then pulsing up and under and pressing. And again. And then lengthening here, left toes, maybe a few pulses here. And sending right foot back and behind, and left arm can rotate as you come up and around into gate. Breathing through your side body. Even that contraction on the left side as we open on the right. Maybe the toes lift or face forward. Good. And then up and over. Up and over, right hand to the earth. And a moment here as we ground through the outer left foot, reaching through your left fingertips. And then lifting left leg, maybe staying like that, or perhaps knee to elbow. Good. And then from here, planting foot, hand, as we turn towards table, drawing left knee forward, sending right foot back. And our variation, it's like pigeon, except that that left foot is stacked underneath your left hip. And you can choose your depth here, right? You can explore maybe lifting a little bit higher, which is going to open more across the front of your right psoas and hip flexor. Maybe right toes are tucked, maybe knee is down, or maybe you're on the top of the right foot lifting through your knee and sending your breath into those edges of sensation, backing away from anything that's painful or where you can't breathe. And we release through tabletop. And our first downward facing dog, as we press into hands, we're lifting through knees and just making this your own. You might bend one knee and the other, or both knees, lengthening through your spine, reaching your heels downward and opening through your calf muscles. Maybe a few breaths in stillness, sensing the movement of the inner body currents. And then from here, an invitation to lift through your right leg and maybe a few rotations of knee circles or lifting and stretching and lengthening as you open the hips. A little free movement here before gazing forward, exhaling as we step right foot forward between your hands. Here's where that cushion can come in handy, lowering left knee to a soft landing. And a few breaths here, maybe blocks come in handy for this, just moving in and out of this first lunge. Reading your right hamstring again, left hip flexor. And then when you're ready, if you're ready, walking hands up so that we're in a bit more of a lifted lunge. And that's, again, why we have a little cushion under the left knee. And another place here where you might just pulse a little forward and back. And I'll guide a more specific integration here, which is to lift up and feel that tether here, drawing your tailbone down and even slightly forward, drawing the sternum towards that. Find that tether. And then from there, a little lift of your heart. And maybe a slight lowering into the lunge. Just explore how it feels. You can come towards that tether and away, like curling it in. Notice what happens in your hip flexor and lift. And keeping that tether, perhaps drawing your arms up overhead. Finding your breath here. Maybe left hand takes hold of right forearm, right wrist, and just a very small but significant side bend here. And maybe switching it out, taking left hand with right wrist and a small but significant side bend here. Opening across the front of your left hip flexor. And then releasing from here, taking both hands to the inside of your right foot. And if blocks are there, you might move them for a moment, or you might use them in a moment. And then as we come a little bit more deeper into this lunge, you might stay on hands, you might come onto forearms or forearms on a block. And we greet lizard. Now, really finding ourselves close to the ground here. A humbling of the mind as we greet the body. And then perhaps lifting back up onto your hands. And here you might toe heel right foot out to the right, even keeping those toes angled to the right as you turn towards the right with your upper body. And right hand might be on your right thigh. I'm going to turn and give another view here on the right thigh, or you might reach right arm around, maybe bending left leg, maybe taking a hold of foot or ankle. And even here, you might curl in for a moment, find your tether, and then lift the heart. And let go, release, returning, and we'll meet in downward facing dog. Maybe walk it out for a moment, and again, noticing left and right sides of your body. And the invitation is to lift through your left leg and finding some free movement. Maybe that's some knee circles. Maybe that's lengthening your leg or curling it behind, opening the hips. And eventually gazing forward, stepping forward on an exhale, and perhaps releasing your right knee to that cushion. With or without blocks, you might find a few free movements here in and out of your lunge, noting that left side might have a different story to tell than your right. And then perhaps walking yourself up into a lifted lunge here and exploring how it feels to curl in a little bit and to lift and come in and out of that lunge in this shape. And then very actively finding that tether, noticing how it feels to lift the heart, noticing how it feels to come in and out of the lunge with that engaged, that connection to your core. And then perhaps lifting through your arms. And finding how we can keep that connection to self and yet still open to the world. And perhaps we'll side bend by taking left wrist with right hand and just a very gentle, small sequence to the right. And switching it out, right wrist with left hand and coming over, finding a little bit of deepening into the lunge. Find that sweet spot and sending your breath into psoas, into hip flexor, side body. And let's let it go. We're going to come to the inside of your left leg. Maybe hands, maybe forearms on a block, maybe forearms to the earth. And finding your way in. Perhaps letting your head go, your neck go, your voice go, your jaw releases. And you might stay here, you might lift, gentle lift, toe healing left foot out towards the left, maybe a turn with hand on the thigh. Feeling this out for your body, maybe bending right leg and perhaps taking a hold. And it doesn't matter, right? If you're reaching in that direction, if it's the intention, well done. Eventually, we soften, hands to earth, back through table, and back into downward facing dog. And from downward facing dog, an invitation to roll forward like a wave coming to the shore, allowing yourself to come towards a plank, and from plank, lowering knees, lowering to the earth, a baby cobra. And on an exhale, moving through cat into child's pose. Knees can be wide for this one, really settling yourself inside of the shape. Any supports that you need here. And then receiving your practice thus far in just a few moments of quiet. Collecting yourself with your very own awareness of feet and legs, hips and back, heart and shoulders, arms and hands, throat and head. And bringing this awareness with you as we come back into movement, pressing back up through table, and an invitation to take your block, placing it between your inner thighs and keeping that press towards the block as you curl toes under and press back to downward facing dog. In downward facing dog, giving the block a squeeze, and just notice how this might change this shape for you. Hugging into midline, engaging through our lowest core. And then for our transition, the invitation is to walk your hands back towards your feet and keeping your knees with a nice soft bend so that as we arrive in a standing forward bend with the block, we're not overstraining through the hamstrings or low back. Again, you can nod your head yes and shake it no. Stick out your tongue, scrunch up your face to make a sound. Let something go. And an invitation to bend your knees even a little bit more deeply. So we're in a kind of standing squat and then drawing your arms back behind you. So we're in a very strong shape. As you're squeezing the block with your inner thighs, press your heels away from each other. Just notice these opposition movements, how it wakes up through both the inner and outer thighs. Maybe stay like this. Maybe reach your arms ahead of you, right? Just feeling the strength of your body and then pressing into your feet to come all the way up to standing. Releasing your arms for a moment. I'm going to turn to face you. Just sensing your body in space. You've got the block still. Checking in with your feet, really checking that your feet are relatively parallel and they should be about hips widths apart with the block there. And then from here, an invitation to bring arms back up overhead and taking hold of left wrist with right hand, side body reach towards the right. Inhale, center. We'll switch it out. Give the blocks a nice firm squeeze as we side body to the left. Beautiful. Coming back through to center. An invitation to curl in towards yourself, squeezing block, really curling, finding that tether. And then as we inhale, keep that as you open your heart. And then once again, finding that tether. And inhale. 3 times. Here we go. Curling in. Inhale, lift, open. Maybe draw arms back behind, clasping hands, lifting your heart. And on an exhale, we fold forward once again. Taking your connected palms here and just drawing them overhead, opening through the backside of your heart and your shoulder wings. And then softening hands by way of sacrum to the earth, finding halfway lift. And on an exhale, you can release your block, and I'll invite you to step back, downward facing dog. And our transition, if you'd like to take it, is to roll forward into plank, settling knees to earth, setting down upper body and rolling up into cobra. Inhale. And exhale as we turn down to the earth. Stay here this time. And maybe placing elbows underneath your shoulders for Sphinx. Coming into Sphinx for a moment, and another opportunity to curl the tail down. You might even lift the hips as we tether from sternum to tailbone, from xiphoid process to tailbone. Feel that tether. And then as we set the hips down, draw elbows back, slide forearms back, draw your heart forward, but don't give it all away. Keeping a hold right here of that sense of self. And then soften for a moment. Just soften, maybe wiggle your hips. And perhaps taking hands, clasping them here, or you can keep them parallel, curling toes under. One more variation like we just did here in a forearm plank. Feeling that tether is one of the greatest ways to feel it, right? From xiphoid process to tailbone. Draw it in and then draw your heart forward. Feel a little bit of the shake. It's okay. You got this. And then soften your knees, your hips, widen your elbows, and perhaps pressing back, child's pose for a moment. And then up through table, curling toes under, downward facing dog. And feet out wide to the edges of the mat. And I'll invite you to turn your toes slightly out, bending your knees. And once again, we're going to walk to the back of your mat. This time, landing or ending up in a wide-kneed squat. So arriving in this shape, taking a moment perhaps to just go side to side, greeting hips and knees. And then from here, finding a reach through your hands, pressing into your feet and engaging your legs to stand all the way up. Softening through your hands. And for this next little exploration, this is a pretty deep opener for the diaphragm, for our lungs, for our digestive organs, for the psoas. So feel this out. If it doesn't feel right, or if you've had a big meal lately, come back to this practice later. So this one is going to involve sending all of your breath out and letting a kind of vacuum come into the low belly, drawing your abdominal muscles back to create a massage over your digestive organs. So we stand kind of wide in this one. And there's options for this as well. So we stand wide, hands can be on your knees. We're going to send all of the breath out through the mouth. You can even stick out your tongue, give it a little lion's breath. And then with the breath held out, let that vacuum seal kind of draw the navel back. So it'll look and feel like this. When you need to inhale, soften, breathe at your own rate, and let the breath come back in. You might even stand all the way up. Let that go. So that's stage one. I'm going to show the second stage, and I just want to kind of give you a visual for this one. So the second stage involves then a massage of the digestive organs by actually creating movement of the abdominal muscles that are going to create a very clear massage. And you'll see it in that vacuum state with all the breath held out. So you might watch for a moment and then come into it. And then release. So Agnisara is about moving the digestive fire, and it's powerful, and we're only going to do one more. So don't feel like we're going to do a whole lot of these, but I'd like you to know this practice. It's a beautiful release practice, especially for those of us, myself included, that can hold tension around the gut or in the diaphragm and lungs. So one more time together, inhale, exhale, drawing back with the vacuum. Inhale when you're ready. And let the practice go. And a moment to stand here, just receiving whatever is there for you. Perhaps a release, perhaps an emotion, perhaps sensation. There's no right or wrong response to any practice, just noticing. When you're ready, if you're ready to add in a little bit more movement, invitation is to draw your arms up and a simple forward fold. Inhale, finding some length. And exhale, planting hands, stepping back, downward facing dog. If you'd like a vinyasa through, the invitation is to round forward, rolling knees down, heart down, maybe a gentle cobra, back through child's, and into downward facing dog. From this downward facing dog, I'll invite you to bring right leg up and exhale, stepping forward and through. It's helpful to have blocks at the ready for where we're going in this sequence. And this time, grounding through your left heel, and we'll come up halfway. We'll come up to hands to hips here and finding our way into a warrior one shape and being super gentle with yourself in these transitions. Warrior one is an encouragement of bringing the hips forward, and we just listen for where they naturally meet their end point. And then it's a turning of the sternum, perhaps a lifting of your arms, and a connecting to your breath. Another beautiful place to feel that tether in the lower body and the lifting of your heart. And then on an exhale, sweeping arms back, interlacing hands, and inhale to lift your heart, keep your connection to core. And exhale, humble warrior. Right shoulder to inside of your right leg. Maybe drawing arms up overhead. And again, letting your neck and jaw and face go. And from this shape, I'll invite you to release hands down to the earth or perhaps to your blocks. And to step your left foot forward just enough that we're coming into more of a pyramid shape. So now both toes are angling in the forward direction. Front toes are fully forward and left toes are at an angle. And hips are squaring once again. And you can keep your feet wide enough to allow for enough space. And I'm using the blocks here to find a long spine. And on an exhale, the invitation is to fold in, really shorten that distance, tailbone, xiphoid process. Keep that as we inhale, lengthen. Exhale and fold. Inhaling. And exhale, fold. This time we'll inhale to lengthen, and our blocks come in handy for this transition as well. And you might either step your right foot back a little bit or bring your blocks forward just a little bit, whichever best supports you as we lift left foot off the earth. And here, we've got a nice support for the upper body with the blocks. We've got a strong right leg, and we're going to come into these little Shiva squats here. So as we draw a bend in the right knee, we'll draw the left knee behind and curl everything into a ball. And inhale, lengthen. And exhale, draw it in, really feeling the roots of yourself, probably in your right leg. Okay, inhale, lengthen. Exhale, listen carefully. We're going to send the weight into your right foot and taking hands off the blocks, maybe taking hold of your outer left shin, coming all the way to stand. Now you might really be sensing your right leg. I hope so. And from here, I'll turn to face you for a moment. Here, as we can draw the left knee out to the left and maybe place left foot to the inside of your strong standing right leg, feeling yourself rooted in tree. Maybe a hand to your heart, a hand to your belly. Perhaps drawing your arms like your branches. My roots support my growth. And slowly releasing arms, releasing your left foot. Maybe shake it out for a moment. Let something go. And as we're facing the top of the mat, bending through your knees, finding that tether. Let's find that right here. Beautiful shape. And then lifting through your heart, lifting through your arms, Utkatasana. Feeling connected to core, feeling the opening of the heart here in lightning bolt pose, intense standing pose. Ut is intense. Feeling it, finding it, and then inhale, we're going to lift out. Exhale, forward fold. Inhale, find that halfway lift. Again, you can tether and reach. And exhale, fold. Planting your hands, stepping back. And maybe that forward wave. Knees to earth. Heart to earth. Inhale to cobra. Exhale, listen carefully, hips to heels. Sitting up and lifting with hands at your sacrum. Curling in, find your tether. And inhale to lift. Exhale to stay. And finding that deep connection to your core as you lift into this variation of camel. Soften and release. Back to heels for just a moment. And sliding into downward facing dog. And we'll find side two. Oh yeah, we've got a second side. Inhale, let's reach the left leg back and behind, gazing forward. Exhale, stepping forward, preparing here for warrior one, grounding into your right foot. You might begin with hands at your hips as you lift the upper body, and then just finding your way in. You can open the hips and begin to turn them forward. Find where they naturally stop, grounding through your right leg, your right heel, and then maybe lifting through your arms as the sternum continues forward. Softening through your arms. Inhale as we clasp hands and lift through your heart. And exhale, bowing in humble warrior, greeting the roots of your heart that tangle and embrace the roots of all beings. We are not separate from earth and water and air and all living creatures and each other. Soften hands by way of sacrum to the earth, and a beautiful time for blocks as we shorten our stance for pyramid. Nice wide stance between your legs, hip widths are wider, left toes forward, right angling forward, and then folding in, finding that connection. Inhale, reach the heart. Exhale. Inhale. And exhale. This time as we inhale, preparing to come into our one-legged halfway lift. You can take left foot back or blocks forward, and here we find our way. A moment to acclimate to this shape in gravity, sensing where you are in space. And we'll add movement once again, bending both knees, right knee tucks behind left. Curling into a ball. Inhale, we reach and extend. And exhale. And inhale. And drawing it in. This time, taking hold of your right shin, balancing over your left foot as we transition, big transition up to standing. And then perhaps drawing right knee out to the right. Reaching down with your hand to make a connection between sole of right foot, left leg. Finding your way, your unique expression of tree pose. And as you feel ready, settling, 2 feet on the earth. Beautiful. Shaking it out, releasing however you want. I see you. Good. We're going to inhale when you're ready. Sweeping arms, exhale, finding that forward fold, finding your halfway lift. And as we did before, stepping back, rolling forward, knees, chest, inhaling cobra, exhaling all the way back to sitting on the heels. Second opportunity for camel. Options again. This time, maybe curling toes under, maybe hands at your sacrum, at your hips, lifting through the heart. Maybe hands to heels, finding a little bit more lift. No better or worse, no right, no wrong. Squeezing it into midline with the inner thigh. Feeling that tether and that reach. And when you feel complete, lifting, lowering. Receiving. From here, our transition will be onto our backs, this time bringing a block with you. And in doing so, as you arrive, an invitation to come into a block-supported bridge. Now, I will recommend either lowest setting or mid setting for this first segment. Finding your way into this felt experience of support beneath your sacrum. Just allowing yourself to shift into this softening mode, a yielding into the support of the block, of the floor, the mat. And then perhaps drawing right knee in towards your chest, left knee in to greet it, and maybe sending both legs up towards the ceiling. We'll call this waterfall in this moment, just allowing your blood to return to your heart, your legs to soften, and sensing how we're feeding into the roots of the heart with awareness, with an experience of support. How gravity is right here on your side. And again, perhaps one knee bends and the other, or both, and one foot to the floor, and then the second. And this time, if the block is in a mid setting, I'm going to invite you to take it to its lowest setting under your sacrum. And one knee into your chest, maybe staying just like this, maybe sending your left leg long. And as we soften, surrender to gravity, using your hands here to very gently close the distance between your right knee and right side body or shoulder. And the left leg supported by gravity to lengthen and release. Opening across your left psoas. Releasing the need to defensively protect. Trusting, even if just for a moment. And then very gently rebend through left knee. Right foot can settle, and we'll switch that out. Drawing left knee in, clasping. Around your left shin, maybe extending your right leg long. Letting your exhalations be your ally here. And with each out breath, perhaps exploring letting go of just a little bit of holding, maybe in your forehead or your jaw, your shoulders. Letting go in the belly or your hips. Mm. And then rebending right leg, sending left foot to the earth, pressing into feet just to remove the block. And then as you settle sacrum to the earth, both legs can reach long. Hands perhaps turned upward, palms in a receptive mode as you soften into Shavasana, your final resting pose. Receiving and integrating this practice. Letting yourself be nourished by the experience of support and by the non-doing. One more time, perhaps receiving these words from Rumi. Come, return to the root of yourself. You are a ruby embedded in granite. How long will you pretend it's not true? We can see it in your eyes. Come to the root of yourself, to the root of yourself. So you are always welcome to stay in Shavasana for as long as you possibly can. And if you are ready or longing to come back into movement and connection, explore this transition in a way that lets you stay deeply connected to you as you come back into connection with the world. What does that look and feel like for you? Maybe wiggling fingers, toes, drawing these in, rolling to one side, rocking on your spine, however you would like to make that transition. And as we return together, taking a moment to notice, what are you bringing with you out of this practice? How does your body and mind and emotions and breath and energy give you feedback about what has changed in this practice? And perhaps palms to palms together, sensing how our roots support our growth and how deeply interconnected we all are. Namaste.